problems and conflicts continued, and I had to face the old difficulty of how to fit in with my colleagues. Matters came to a head in the Congress at the presidential elections early in 1939. Unfortunately, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad refused to stand, and Subhash Chandra Bose was elected after a contest. I have known Subhash for over 20 years. He was not only brave, but had a deep love for freedom. It is an open secret that at times there were differences between us on political questions. He did not approve of any step being taken by the Congress which was anti-Japanese or anti-Italian, and yet such was the feeling in the Congress and the country that he did not oppose this or many other manifestations of Congress sympathy with China and the victims of fascist and Nazi aggression. There was a big difference in outlook between him and the Congress executive, both in regard to foreign and internal matters. One of Subhash's grievances against me, which is coming out more definitely in his correspondences, is his objection to the foreign policy I have sponsored. Gandhiji was not interested in these ideological conflicts, but with his extraordinary capacity to sense the situation, felt that indiscipline was growing rapidly and chaotic forces were being let loose. He was thinking in terms of the great struggle with British imperialism, and indiscipline could not be a prelude to this. Subhash Bose resigned from the presidentship and started the Forward Bloc. He struggled throughout his life for independence of India, though in his own way. The fascist powers would very much like India to be a thorn in the side of England when war comes, so that they might profit by the situation we create. There is nothing that we would dislike so much as to play into the hands of the fascist powers, just as we dislike being exploited by imperialist Britain. Our anti-war policy must therefore be based on freedom and democracy and opposition to fascism and imperialism. And yet with a little twist, it might well be turned into a pro-fascist policy.
And I have no doubt that you will give them due consideration. In the first place, I desire to thank you most heartily for the warm and enthusiastic welcome that you have given me on the occasion.
Subhash escaped from India, went to Germany and then to Japan.
And for the assurance that you have given me of your wholehearted support to our efforts.
As for Subhash, I have never doubted his passion for freedom. He had no love for the Japanese, but he imagined that he could further Indian independence by allying himself with the Japanese and Germans, who were not only aggressive powers, but dangerous powers. The story of the Indian National Army, formed in Burma and Malaya during war years, under the leadership of Subhash Chandra Bose, from the abandoned ranks of the British Indian Army, spread suddenly throughout the country and evoked an astonishing enthusiasm. They became the symbols of India fighting for her freedom. They became also the symbol of unity among the various religious groups in India, for Hindu and Muslim and Sikh and Christian were all represented in that army. They had solved the communal problem amongst themselves, and so why should we not do so? Munich, 1938. I watched at close quarters the difficult and intricate game of how to betray your friend and the cause you are supposed to stand for on the highest moral grounds. What surprised me most was the utter collapse in the moment of crisis of all the so-called advanced people and groups.
Which bears his name upon it as well as mine.
The situation in Europe in August 1939 was threatening. England and France had played false to Republican Spain and betrayed Czechoslovakia. War was declared in Europe. April came and the Norwegian debacle. May brought the horrors of Holland and Belgium. June, the sudden collapse of France. And Paris, that proud and fair city, nursery of freedom, lay crushed and fallen. The Viceroy of India announced that India was also at war. One man, and he a foreigner, and a representative of a hated system, could plunge 400 millions of people into war without the slightest reference to them. There was something fundamentally wrong and rotten in a system under which the fate of these millions could be decided in this way. The Congress laid down and frequently repeated a dual policy in regard to war. There was on the one hand opposition to fascism and Nazism. There was intense sympathy with the victims of that aggression. And there was willingness to join in any war or other attempts to stop this aggression. On the other hand, there was an emphasis on the freedom of India, because that was our fundamental objective for which we had continuously labored. We reiterated that only a free India could take proper part in such a war. The British government were bent on ignoring completely Indian opinion. Not even formal or nominal respect was shown to the people's representatives and the declared wishes of the nation. One by one, the Congress resigned and retired from office, and provincial autonomy functioned no more. In June 1941, we were stirred by Hitler's sudden attack on Soviet Russia. Pearl Harbor and what followed it suddenly created a new tension and gave a new perspective. With the fall of Penang in Singapore, and as the Japanese advanced in Malaya, there was an exodus of Indians and others, and they poured into India. The war ceased to be a distant spectacle and began to approach India and affect her immediately. Gandhiji sponsored a Congress resolution which declared that the primary function of the Provisional Government of Free India would be to throw her great resources in the struggle for freedom and against aggression. Gandhiji was getting on in years. He was in his 70s, and a long life of ceaseless activity, of hard toil, both physical and mental, had enfeebled his body. But he was still vigorous enough, and he felt that all his life work would be in vain if he submitted to circumstances. On 31st May 1942, Mahatma Gandhi stated, "I have waited and waited until the country should develop the non-violent strength necessary to throw off the foreign yoke. But my attitude now has undergone a change. I feel that I cannot afford to wait. If I continue to wait, I might have to wait till doomsday. The time has come for us to emphasize and concentrate on complete independence and the total withdrawal of the British power from India." Gandhiji spoke, "I will say nothing less than freedom. Here is a mantra, a short one that I give you. The mantra is, do or die. We shall either free India or die in the attempt. we shall not live to see the perpetration of our slavery. On August the 7th and 8th in Bombay, the All India Congress Committee considered and debated the resolution, the Quit India resolution. The resolution was a reasoned argument for the immediate recognition of Indian freedom. The resolution was finally passed late in the evening of August the 8th. The reaction in the country was extraordinarily widespread.